Let's get right down to it. Former Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. First of all, Steven Mnuchin, thank you for coming on. Happy New Year, sir, as always.
Happy New Year, Larry, and it's great to be with you.
All right, good stuff. I guess there's a wee bit of a delay. Anyway, Steve, let me just begin with this. We're debating, our mantra in the show has been save America, kill the bill, and so forth and so on. Joe Manchin's been a hero on this. But if you step back for a second, did we or do we really need this Build Back Better? The CBO scored it as $5 trillion with $3 trillion in debt. Do we really need this bill? And in fact, Steve, I just want to add one more. Did we really need the emergency relief bill last March and April? That was $2 trillion. Was all this stuff necessary?
Larry, as you know, we spent $4 trillion. In the first two bills, we passed 96 to 0 and 100 to 0. Overwhelming support. And I think had we not done that, we would have had a global depression. But we should have stopped there. We didn't need the last $2 trillion, and we surely don't need more spending now. And when people say, oh, it's deficit neutral, it's not deficit neutral. That's silly government math over a 10-year period. The debt would go way up. I mean, just to put this in perspective, we had $22 trillion of debt and $20 trillion of GDP pre-COVID. We're now at $29.5 trillion of debt, on our way to 31 or 32, and everything's funded out.
Yes, and actually, I know you always say to me that I'm not as worried about the debt as you are, but actually I'm catching up to you on this debt question because it's so much, the numbers have gotten so big. And I just want to add to that, the inflation issue, which is principally a government spending and Fed money creation issue. I mean, Steve, if we didn't have these big bills, maybe the inflation rate would be a whole lot lower today.
Larry, I'm glad you're catching up to me on this issue. And there's no question we have inflation. We're going to continue to have inflation. I think the Fed was slow, and I understand why they were slow, because they wanted to be careful, given none of these models really can predict things. But now I think you've seen them. The minutes came out today. Clearly, the Fed is going to raise rates. The Fed is going to normalize the portfolio. It's just how quick or how fast they do it. And look, I think 18 months from now, we'll be sitting with 3% 10-year treasuries. So I think we're going to slow down the inflation, but we definitely have to raise interest rates along the way.
Yeah, you think the Fed's behind the 8 ball?
I think they are. I think they've been slow to react, but I think Chair Powell, was concerned about reacting too quickly. But now I think they get it. So I think over the next year, you're going to see the Fed normalize rates and normalize the portfolio. The Fed has always been very concerned about inflation, and the numbers now overwhelmingly show we have real ongoing inflation. This just isn't a transition issue.
And you mentioned a moment ago on these votes, the prior bills in 2020 passed unanimously. They were bipartisan bills to mitigate the pandemic crisis and at least the temporary economic shutdown. We didn't have to use reconciliation. There was no bitterness. It wasn't that easy. You were one of the principal negotiators of those bills. I mean, isn't that a tip-off, even going back to last spring, the $2 trillion bill, and certainly now this bill that we want to kill? If you can't get it done in a bipartisan way, it probably is not worth doing.
Larry, I agree with you completely. And we never even considered using reconciliation for these emergency spending programs. I mean, as you know, we used reconciliation for the Tax Act. And, taxes can go up, taxes can go down. But reconciliation was not intended to replace a mechanism for government spending. And as you remember, Speaker Pelosi and I negotiated a 2-year caps deal for government spending. And, in those times, we were arguing about 10 billion or 15 billion difference, not $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there.
Yes. Let me turn to parts of this gigantic bill. I mean, it looks like the bill is dead, but it's never fully dead. And again, I give lots of praise to Joe Manchin for his courage as a Democrat, leading Democrat, to stop this thing. But it's never dead until it's dead, and even then, it may not always be dead. Why on earth would we want to unwind and reverse the Trump tax cuts, which were so successful? That's a key part of Biden's thinking, Steve Mnuchin, and I've never understood it. The economy was roaring. It was a V-shaped recovery, et cetera, et cetera. The bottom half did better than the top half. I just don't get it. And to me, that's one of the most egregious features of the bill.
Well, Larry, as you remember, because you were there on the campaign when we worked with President Trump about creating the economic program, and that was tax cuts, regulatory relief, and trade. And when we passed the tax cuts and the rest of the economic program, you saw the economy was doing really, really well. And as I mentioned, we were at 100% debt to GDP, but we were growing the economy faster than we were growing the debt. So those economic programs were working. Obviously, during COVID, when we shut down the entire economy, I mean, nobody ever considered the downside of a business as zero revenues. That was just an extraordinary situation. And look how well the economy is doing now, despite the fact that we do still have COVID. We've learned to live with it.
You know, one of my new mantras is going to be for the Republican Party and Democrats who wish to join. But I think, Steve Mnuchin, we should push to make the Trump tax cuts permanent. Make the Trump tax cuts permanent. What you think?
Well, there's no question. You know, we made the corporate side permanent. The individual and pass-through side expire in 2026. So we have a while to deal with that. But hopefully there'll be bipartisan approach to understanding that these tax cuts really helped middle-income people, people who are working hard, people who have been impacted by COVID, and we should continue them, particularly for small businesses.
You know, Kevin Hassett just wrote a paper with Tyler Goodspeed. You may or may not have seen it. It was in National Review Online. But even the revenue numbers, Steve Mnuchin, you know, after a few years, the revenue numbers panned out. The thing virtually paid for itself. And again, the biggest benefits went to the middle and lower end, not the top end.
Well, you remember you and Kevin and I always forecast it would pay for itself. And look, it's simple math, because as time goes on, we could see what the revenues are. There's no question that COVID had an impact on that. But I continue to believe that the economic prosperity will pay for the tax cuts. Now, having said that, the issue we have right now is a large government deficit as a result of additional spending. And by the way, I'm all for fixing the tax cap, but if we get more money under the tax cap, that should be used to pay down the deficit. The fact that the Democrats want to theoretically claim money on a tax gap by hiring more people at the IRS and then go spend that money, I mean, that just makes no sense.
Yeah, and then, okay, so IRS in the Treasury Department under your purview. What do you think about this snoop stuff, as I call it? Now they want everybody, virtually every transaction by every family, no matter how rich or poor, has to be reported to the IRS, which strikes me as a gigantic invasion of personal property, personal freedom, and so forth. Snoop, what's that all about?
Larry, I think that proposal went way too far, okay? I think there's no question that better use of technology, and I'm very happy that Congress passed more money for technology for the IRS, because we needed to make and continue to make a big investment. So I'm all for using technology to simplify taxes and reporting, but we don't need this massive third-party reporting that was in the bill.
Also, let me turn more on regulatory stuff. It's sort of an unfortunate situation. Our Trump's FDIC appointee, Jelena McWilliams, who had, I think, at least a year left on her term, has just resigned, really kind of forced out by Trump regulatory appointees elsewhere in the government. And this, you know, strikes me as a complete politicalization of what ought to be independent regulatory authority of our financial system. Nobody ever accused you of doing that, and I don't know why they're doing it now. What's your take on this? How critical are you going to be on this?
Well, Larry, she was clearly pushed out by the Biden appointees. And let me just say, look, every president has the right to appoint their own appointees. And obviously, our appointees believed in less regulation, but proper regulation. And the banks have never been better capitalized. And obviously, the Biden administration is appointing people that believe in massive amounts of regulation and, to a certain extent, want to stop the big banks from lending. But the thing that was really unprecedented, look, when we got in power, there was a Democrat who was chair of the FDIC. We respected the position that the chair continued to have approval rights over the agenda and what's brought to the board. We waited till the chair's term was over to replace them. And what the Biden appointees did is that, they effectively changed the bylaws so that they could vote 3-1 on whatever they want and overrode the whole purpose of the chair. I mean, the reason there is a chair and the chair is different than the other people is because the chair has certain controls. Now, they ultimately could have replaced the chair when her term was up, but I think it's just a terrible precedent of political interference in what's been a long-standing process at the FDIC.
I mean, a lot of this, in addition to the FDIC fiasco, it just seems to me, and Steve Forbes will be on the show later, Steve coined this phrase, modern socialism, meaning that you can use ultra overzealous, overreaching regulatory authority as a means of controlling the economy. You don't have to take over the means of production, in steel mills anymore, the way they did in the 1930s. But socialism today, you can run it as a regulatory state. Control banking, control energy. You've seen what they've done to the energy sector, control healthcare and so forth. How much of a threat is this going to be?
Well, Larry, you have to have a healthy banking system to have a healthy economy. And I clearly believe that if you have FDIC government-insured deposits, banks should be regulated appropriately. But that's appropriate regulation, and regulation shouldn't be used for a social or political agenda. It should be used for safety and soundness of the banking system.
All right, last one. You've been a long-time investor, and I recall vividly, and I took my cue from you, but when the pandemic hit in 2020 and all things went south and so forth, you argued that the stock market would come back. You were exactly right about this. We were talking about the V-shaped recovery, but you said these are still good companies. Once we get through the emergency, they will come back. And you were dead right. It was a great call, maybe one of your best calls of all time. So now my question is, here we are at the beginning of a new year. What's your new stock market call, Steve Mnuchin?
Well, Larry, there's no question that the market is now ahead of itself. I mean, I'm a long-term believer in U.S. public equities. So if you asked me 5 or 10 years from now, is the market going to be higher? I absolutely think it is. It's very hard for individual investors to time the market. By the time you sell and pay back taxes and get back in, it's hard to do. But I think we're going to see some moderate correction over the year. And I think we're also going to see changes within different sectors. So I think there's clearly certain areas of the market, things like these electric vehicles. Some of the areas of the market are just way overhyped. But I think there's other terrific opportunities. I mean, we're very focused in our business now looking at cybersecurity, looking at technology investments for national security, fintech and financials. I continue to think the advance of technology is going to have profound changes.
Great stuff. Former Treasury Secretary, great friend, mentor, Steve Mnuchin. Happy New Year, Steve. All the best. Be in touch. Thanks very much for